Assuming the first meeting went well and they wanted to proceed with you, you've probably sent a proposal with your price by now. Now, we're not talking about proposals this week just because I want to stay in the context of sales, and we're going to talk about proposals later on when we're talking about the whole operations. But let's say that you've sent them a proposal. Now they're probably, in most cases, negotiate. Sometimes they're just going to say yes and sign it, and that's amazing. But in most cases, they're going to negotiate. So let's talk about how you're going to do that successfully. First of all, it's important to have the right mindset when negotiating. And the mindset is that everybody needs to win. Okay, because the reason that I say this is when I was starting out, I thought that I needed to get what I wanted. I had the notion of I gave them a good price and I wrote a fair proposal. And if they're going to negotiate with me, they're kind of disrespecting me and they are not giving me what I want. And I needed to win, meaning get what I want. And I wasn't willing to give them anything back. And that kind of creates a situation where they can't feel like they won. They got what they wanted. And so you need to be in the state of mind of how we're going to find a way where both of us can win. And I want to help you think about that. So basically, here's how you think about it. Of course, for every project, there is kind of an acceptable range that you're willing to work with. So let's assume from a very cheap price to a very high price. You have a range, right? Obviously, you'd like to make as much money as possible, but you probably have some kind of a minimum for the project where if you get less than that, it's probably not worth your time. You can either probably get another project or do something else, but you're not going to do that project for so much for so little money because it's just unprofitable for you. So you have kind of a range to work with. Now the client themselves also have kind of a range. Now obviously every client would like to get the work done for a cheaper price because they're a business and they're trying to save money, but they have kind of a maximum point that they're willing to spend. Okay, so you have a minimum price point and they have a maximum price point, and you never really know that. However, everything that's in between, everything that's overlapping is where a deal can happen and both of you will be happy. Okay, so even if you don't get what you initially wanted, if you're not starting with your minimum point, then you can still lower your price and find something that is acceptable for you. And the same is true for them, even if they're going to pay a little bit more than what they expected. So there's a wiggle room here, okay? And the point here, obviously you'll try to maximum, you'll try to get to the higher end of the deal range, and they'll try to get to the lower end of the deal range. And that's kind of the wiggle room of the negotiation. That's what's happening right now. However, both of you want to make sure that there's a deal. Otherwise, you both, just spent a lot of time and wasted time and energy, and nobody really wants that. So you need to assume that they do want to have a deal and that you both want to win and need to win. And there's actually probably a lot of wiggle room in between. Okay? So the first key takeaway from this is that you need to ask for more than you actually want to get, or at least a lot more than your minimum price point. And again, I struggled a lot with this because I thought that the honest thing to do was to start with my minimum price range. But that did not allow me to have any wiggle room. And the truth is, clients do expect to have this game of negotiation because that's just how business runs. Okay, it's not because they're disrespecting me. It's because they have the assumption, which is most of the time correct, that people are actually charging more than their minimum price. Okay, so then we have this dance of negotiation. But if you don't play this game, if you start out by pricing your minimum price range, you don't have the range to play, but you can't really tell them that, right? Because you can't say, oh, I've started with they won't believe you because they assume that you act like everybody else. And so you do need to play this game. And I'm going to share some tactics about how you can play this game better so that you can win and get more out of that wiggle room. So the first thing is to use odd numbers. And by using odd numbers, I mean never price your project $1,000. $2,000, $5,000. The reason is when the number is round and perfect, it looks like, it was just made up, okay? Versus when you say that your price is $4,753, that number looks more calculated. It looks like you went through some kind of a process and calculated the hours and the materials and everything that goes into it. And so it looks like you've put in a lot of effort, and you didn't just pull out the number from your whatever, and came up with the number of 5,000. It looks like you put in a lot of work into it. And so the clients will be less likely to negotiate hard because they will assume that you've already did some of the calculation yourself and the number is probably reasonable. Note, this is psychological, okay? So even if you decided that you want to price the project $5,000, it's better if you write $4,953, which is, only like a $50 difference, but it will look like you already did. They will be less likely to negotiate a lower price because it looks like you did a hard work and you didn't just come up with the number 5,000. The second thing is always you need to show goodwill. And showing goodwill is meaning that you want the deal to happen, right? And you tell them this out front. You tell them, look, I'm excited to work with you. I want to make this work. Let's figure out a way to make both sides happy. They need to know that your agenda here is that both sides will win. And that's, you're not trying to screw them. You're not trying to win them over. You're not trying to trick them. You're here to work together with them, even if it takes some work. Okay, you're not avoiding, you're not running away, you're not lazy. You want to work together with them, okay, because this negotiation takes some time and takes some effort, and you need to understand what they want, and you need to rethink, and maybe you need to change your proposal a little bit. But if you tell them, look, I'm here because I want to work with you, and we'll find a way, that gives them confidence that you're in there with them. Again, goes back to what we talked previously on sales. You want to help them, and you want to be helpful and find a way to make this happen. Of course, you have to find a way that works for them, but it also works for your business, but it shows that you care and you want to work with them, and it gives them the confidence to keep working with you. Now, when they will ask for a discount, and they will a lot of time ask for a discount, you need to flinch. What does it mean, flinching? Okay, it means that you need to show them, and that's a little bit of an acting, but it's important. You need to show that it's painful for you. Okay, so for example, let's take an example. Let's say I've priced the project at $5,000. Okay, but actually I can go down into $4,000 and still, make a profit. So let's say they say, give us a discount, and I can say, that's really tough. I'm not really sure how I can do this. Let me think about this. You know what? I really want to work with you, so, let's find a way to make this happen. So at the end of the day, I might give them, what they want, but because I flinch, because I show them how painful it is for me, that's giving them the psychological feeling that first, they did something painful to me. And the second is that they're winning, right? Because they want to have the feeling that they squeezed you to the end. All right, that's just business practice, not because they're bad people. Again, so you need to show them that it's painful, and that will decrease the likelihood of them pushing you because they already saw that it's painful. So they don't want to inflict too much pain on you. Okay, hopefully at this point they like you and they do want to work with you. Now, one thing that is a little bit technical is trying to avoid saying the word no, just because it puts you in a kind of a negative, if you're negative, they're going to try to be negative. And so let's try to have the conversation in a positive way. So instead of saying no, you can say, just, I don't see how we can make this happen, or let's try to think about this. But just trying to work around instead of saying no. This is just a little bit technical. Instead of saying no, you can try to think about how to be positive. So let's think, how can we make this happen? Okay, let's work together. Okay, so you need a discount. So how can we make this discount happen? Well, maybe we can reduce the scope. Maybe you can give me something in return, maybe a better payment terms, a longer deadline. Maybe we can remove something from the project. So let's work with you. If you need a discount, all right, sure, we can work this out. But how can I still make this and run a profitable business? Something needs to change. Okay, so when you do this, you show them goodwill, and you show them that you want to make this happen, and you're basically a little bit moving the responsibility to them. Now they need to tell you, what they're giving you in return for you giving them what you want. And again, we're talking about money, but sometimes the negotiation is going to be about other things as well, such as payment terms and deadlines and support and number of iterations. So all of these things are things, there are things besides money here that are on the table. So again, you can say, okay, I'll give you a discount, but instead of 3 rounds of iterations, you're only getting 1. So everything is a trade-off, and you can use these things when you're negotiating. Now, there's a tactic that's called the acquisition audit. I took it from the book, I think, Never Split the Difference. He's the guy that mentioned the acquisition audit. And the acquisition audit, the way that it works is basically you start off by saying everything that's bad about the situation. Okay, so everything that that they're going to say, you're going to tell them. So, look, I know that you think that I don't have experience. I know that you think that this is very expensive. I know that you think that I won't be able to do it on time. Now, you say exactly what their fears and concerns are, and by doing that, they feel like you understand them, and that kind of dissolve these accusations. So I don't know if you remember, if you ever saw that 8 Mile movie with Eminem, where he has kind of a battle rap with another rapper, and you should watch that scene. There's kind of a duel of rap, and he starts off by, the way that he wins is he starts off with, I know everything that you're about to say to me. You're going to say that I'm whatever, that I'm white trash, that I'm this and this and that. So he started off by saying everything that the other person was about to accuse him with, and by doing that, he kind of took away their ammunition. So you can use this tactic to take away everything that they were about to negotiate around you. You say, look, I do understand that. Now here's how we're going to work through this. The second thing is, if you get to an agreement, you need to get some kind of a commitment. So let's say that they ask you for some discount, and let's say a 10% discount, and you worked around this. So before you say yes to this, you should say, well, if we do this, if I give you the 10% discount, do we have a deal? And you want to hear them say yes, because that's basically a commitment. And you know that by getting that commitment, that's the last thing that they're going to negotiate for. So make sure that you ask them, do we have a deal if I do what you're asking me to do? Now, sometimes in the middle of negotiation, they will disappear. Okay, you sent this, they've replied on email, maybe you got on a call, maybe you need to revise your proposal, and sometimes they will disappear. And that stuff happens, specifically if they're getting other proposals, or if they have other things on their mind, or if they need to consult with different people in their business. That stuff happens. Doesn't mean that they don't want to work with you. Always assume good intentions, but you need to follow up. That kind of is similar to following up if you're reaching out on email. So just don't feel bad writing them, not 5 times a day, but if they didn't answer for 2 more days or something like that, you can follow up and say, I want to know if we're progressing. Now, as a last resort, if they didn't come back to you, what I'm usually saying is, I'm saying, look, right now I'm closing my booking for the upcoming months, and I'm not sure whether I should save availability for you. That kind of flips the script, and they're now feeling like they're about to miss out on something that is scarce. I don't have a lot of time, and if they're not going to make a decision soon, they're going to miss out on the opportunity of working with me. Okay? So that's kind of the last resort if they didn't follow up or if they didn't make a decision. Now, here's the thing, and I've mentioned this at the beginning of the whole videos on sales. Most designers hate doing this, hate this process because it's a process that brings up a little bit of tension. And we, especially I know that it's true about me, I like to avoid confrontations. Okay, so that's really painful and uncomfortable for me to do this, the negotiation and the sales and all of that. But because most people are like that, because most people feel like you do and I do, that means that if you grow this muscle and if you stay with it, you're going to win where most people are not going to win. Most people are not going to do the negotiation. Most people, or they're going to do it by just giving them whatever they want, or they're not going to follow up. But if you stay with it, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's a little bit painful sometimes, you're going to win. And that's super important to keep in mind. Now, the last thing is you have to ask for the close, okay? And by doing that, I mean you need to tell them, look, you need to sign the proposal and you need to deposit the down payment. Just sending this to them, they need some kind of a call to action, okay? It's nice while you're talking, yeah, this project, here's the price and so forth, but then you need to close. You need to make sure that we're progressing, and you do that with a strong call to action. You need to tell them what to do next. That's also, I'm going to show you when we're talking about proposal, it needs to be part of the proposal, but you need to tell them, you need to give them this call to action. Please sign the proposal and then deposit the down payment, and then we can get started. And always, always, always make sure they agree in writing. This really helps. Besides kind of the legal side of things, this helps to get the commitment done. So whatever they said on the phone, just make sure that you either have a signed contract or proposal, or at least you have a reply in the email if you send them, like, so I'm summing up what we talked on the phone, the project will go for this and those are the terms, and they say, yes, I agree. Always get the agreement in writing.